the arena of warlords. The Colosseum of Vraxis Prime was a living monument to violence, carved into a hollowed asteroid and ringed with planetary defense turrets. The arena was sacred ground for over 200 warrior species. It was said that every inch of its obsidian floor had soaked in the blood of 1,000 champions. Warlords, nobles, and mercenary kings watched from hovering balconies, their jeweled armor catching light from the arena's blood-red sun. This was no place for diplomats. This was a place for monsters. Today marked the final stage of the Clash of Sovereigns, a once-a-decade spectacle where empires sent their deadliest combat beasts to fight for honor, resources, and dominion over unclaimed systems. Augmented giants, cloned killers, telekinetic berserkers, each represented the pinnacle of war breeding. The arena thundered as the Velkar, a 9-foot reptilian terror, stomped into the sand. It roared, spreading its blade-lined arms as the crowd responded with primal screams. Behind it came the Droxan hive brute, chitin glistening, 6 arms flexing in perfect synchronization. Then the Archive Mauler, taller than a dropship and rumored to drink molten metal for hydration. Combatants took their places in a wide circle. The air shimmered with heat and hostility. Spectators leaned in. And then silence. A metallic groan echoed from the far gate, a sound unlike any other. No trumpet announced this entrance. No digital banners. Just the gate opening, slowly. From the darkness stepped a lone figure. No towering armor, no glowing eyes, no plasma-linked weaponry. Just a man. Tan skin, standard fatigues, sleeves rolled up, a long scar down the left arm. Across his chest, an old, sun-faded patch, U.S. Navy SEAL. No exosuit, no shield drone, just a standard-issue combat knife strapped to his thigh and a hollow calm in his eyes. The arena did not cheer. It watched. Commander Jack Rains kept walking, slow and deliberate. He didn't posture. He didn't glance at his enemies. He didn't have to. He stopped at the center of the blood-stained floor and looked up at the warlords, then at the sky above the open dome. The Velkar flinched. The Droxan brute hissed low, confused, uncertain. And one by one, the combat beasts, all genetically perfected engines of slaughter, lowered their heads. The crowd murmured. Some laughed nervously. Others stared in disbelief. The Mauler, undefeated in a century of warfare, knelt. Not from pain, not from respect, from recognition, from instinct. The name human meant nothing to most civilians in the Accord. Earth was a minor trade planet, known mostly for art, spice exports, and unpredictable climate. But to warriors, true warriors, humans were ghosts. A species that emerged from a kill-or-die evolutionary chain. They hadn't just mastered war. They were war. Rain slowly unsheathed his knife and pressed the tip into the dirt. Not a threat, a ritual, a promise. Up in the warlord's box, the Ktharan general narrowed his eyes. Why has this one come alone? The Valoran chancellor beside him frowned. Perhaps to die. No, the Ktharan muttered. No beast kneels to pray. Across the arena, silence spread like wildfire. Even the announcers, normally screaming in a dozen tongues, held their breath. Rains finally spoke. I'm the last of my unit, the last of Ghost Team 7. I do not come to win. He looked at each combat beast in turn. I come to remind you what it means to face something that doesn't fear death. That doesn't stop when the body breaks. That doesn't need augmentation to kill. He paused, kneeling beside the knife. You call them combat beasts. Back home, we just call them obstacles. And then he smiled. Not wide, not arrogant, just enough to make the hive brute take an involuntary step back. Somewhere in the upper tiers, a battle-hardened general leaned forward and whispered, Gods help us. They sent a real one. In the center of the galaxy's greatest killing ground, a lone human stood before the monsters of the stars. And every combat beast bowed its head, the path of the beast slayer. They called him the last human berserker. But Commander Jack Rains never thought of himself that way. To him, he was just a soldier, a product of endless rotations through fire, blood, and survival. He hadn't come to Vraxis Prime for glory or politics. He came to deliver a message. 20 years earlier, on a planet called Earth, Rains had dragged himself through the swamps of Coronado, half-starved, bones aching, lungs burning. Hell Week, Day 4, Bud/S training. The crucible where warriors either broke or evolved. He remembered Instructor Vance screaming over the roar of surf. You think pain's gonna kill you? Pain's just a suggestion. Death's a destination. You decide if you make the trip. And Rains had decided. Every day since. By the time Earth made first contact with the Accord, the planet had survived 10,000 years of war, one nuclear exchange, and a century-long collapse called the Ash Years. The Korthaxi War that followed, humanity's first off-world conflict, changed everything. The Accord had underestimated humans, thought them primitive, thought their soldiers could be crushed like insects. Instead, Earth's counterattack burned through 3-star systems. The Accord called it the Beast Slayer Protocol. Rains had led one of the original Ghost teams, Black Ops units trained to eliminate post-augmented war forms using guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare, and ancient, brutal hand-to-hand methods. The Accord sued for peace in under a year. The irony? Earth never wanted war. But when cornered, humanity didn't fight like diplomats. They fought like predators. Back in the arena, the first trial began. A horn blared, a sound that made the bones of lesser species rattle in their chests. From the north gate stomped the Mirkan Devastator, a bipedal mountain of carbon-bonded muscle and plated hide. 8 feet tall, quad-lunged, tail like a battering ram. It was bred for arena dominance and had never lost. The beast roared, opening its jaws to reveal a second inner mouth lined with serrated teeth. The crowd erupted. Rain stood still. No armor, no visible weapons, just the same fatigue pants and a tactical vest with faded patches. The Devastator charged. 5 tons of screaming rage thundered forward, claws ready to shred, tail arcing to crush. Rains waited. At the last moment, he stepped sideways. One movement. Efficient. Economical. The beast roared past him, overcommit. Rains pivoted and drove his fist into the side of its neck, just below the breathing gills. The creature stumbled, gasped. The second strike was faster, 3 fingers jabbing into the temple nerve cluster. It shrieked, confused, off balance. Rains rolled under its swing, kicked the knee joint backward, and drew his combat knife. It wasn't glowing. It wasn't high-tech, but it was sharp, and Rains knew exactly where to put it. One plunge behind the jawline, a twist, and the beast collapsed like a building imploding, dead before it hit the ground. Silence. Then chaos. The crowd didn't cheer. Not yet. They didn't know how. The kill hadn't been flashy. It had been surgical. Fast. Final. Rains wiped the blade clean on his pants and looked up at the warlord's box. His eyes locked with the Korthaxi general. No words passed, but the message was received. I remember your war. Do you remember mine? From the holding pens, the other beasts watched and remembered. Later, in the arena barracks, Rains sat alone in the dark. A small, worn photo rested on the bench beside him. 5 faces. His ghost team, smiling before their final mission. They were all dead now. One vaporized in a sabotage op. One torn apart boarding a hive ship. The last 2 bled out buying time for refugees on a collapsing moon. He'd buried them all, or what was left. He was the last. The galaxy thought this was a spectacle, a tournament. But to Rains, it was a graveyard. A place to remind the Accord what had once crawled out of gravity well on a blue planet, survived its own extinction, and thrived. A species that turned pain into strategy, fear into instinct, war into art. He stood, picking up the photo, then the knife. Tomorrow, another beast would enter the arena. And tomorrow, he would teach it fear. War Council reactions and the final match. The War Councils convened before dawn. High above the arena in obsidian towers, the most powerful species in the galaxy met in tense silence. Holographic charts floated between them. Replay footage, biometric data, kill time metrics. Every screen displayed the same impossible number. Kill time, 11.2 seconds. Combatant, human, Rains, Jack, species, Terran. Result, instant fatality confirmed. No other champion in the arena had dispatched a Mirkan devastator that quickly, not in recorded galactic history. The Valoran Chancellor slammed a clawed hand against the table. This is not a sanctioned war form. He carries no augmentations, no Neuralink weaponry. What is he? An anomaly, growled the Korthaxi general. His voice was a low, metallic grind, but one we've seen before. You mean the Earth Wars, said a Zerati elder. The ones your empire lost. The Korthaxi's eyes burned red. We did not lose. We survived. Barely. The silence that followed wasn't political. It was instinctual. Everyone in that room, regardless of species, understood what they were seeing. This wasn't about Reigns as an individual. This was about humanity. A species that had evolved through collapse, through civil war, through mass extinction. They were unpredictable, illogical, and in battle, unrelenting. The arena masters had always invited humans as a gesture, a nod to the newer members of the Accord, never expecting one to actually enter, let alone dominate. Now, panic bloomed in whispers. He undermines the order, said one warlord. If a baseline human can defeat our champions, what happens to the status of combat breeds? Another added, what happens when Earth stops watching and starts sending more like him? No one wanted to say it aloud, but everyone felt it. Humanity had only sent one, and that was enough to shake the foundations of their power. Back below the arena, in the holding cells, the beasts murmured among themselves in low, wordless tones. They had no language, not like the sentient races above, but they understood hierarchy and fear. Reigns had broken it. The Archai Mauler, undefeated in 6 blood cycles, refused to leave its cell. The Droxen Hive Brute entered a dormant cycle, a state of hibernation triggered by high-stress response. Even the bio-enhanced Jagari twins, who had once ripped etheric godsuit in half, avoided eye contact with the human. Only one creature had not reacted in fear, because it did not react at all. The Korthaxi juggernaut. It stood in its private vault, motionless. No eyes, no emotions. It was not born, but assembled. Titanium bone lattice, synthetic musculature, combat AI with over 10 million log kills in simulation and live conflict. It had once slaughtered the last resistance cell on Everion 9 without a weapon, and tomorrow it would face Jack Reigns. In the arena chapel, a place no one visited except before death matches, Reigns sat alone. No priests, no chants, just the dim flicker of an old earth lighter and a scrap of cigar he'd saved for months. He lit it, let the smoke curl up into the cold air, and stared at the knife across his lap. He'd sharpened it by hand, not for show, but because he knew he'd need every edge. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. A voice followed, measured, almost respectful. You shouldn't have come, Terran. Reigns didn't look up, but I did. The figure stepped into the light. A Korthaxi diplomat, unarmed, older than most, with a ceremonial brand on his jawline. You beat beasts, the Korthaxi said. But what comes next is not alive. It feels no pain. It learns. It adapts. Reigns puffed the cigar, then flicked it away. So do I. The diplomat hesitated. It has no fear, no instinct to submit. Then it's already lost. The Korthaxi's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes flickered. This is not our war, human. You have nothing to prove. Reigns stood, picked up the knife, slid it into the sheath. It's not about proof. It's about memory. He turned to the alien, eyes hard as forged steel. You forgot what we are. I'm here to remind you. Later that night, as the stars wheeled over the Colosseum dome, the announcement blared through every channel. Final match confirmed. Combatant, human, Reigns Jack, versus Korthaxi Juggernaut, Unit V3, execution model. Bet sword. The galaxy watched, and in every corner of the Accord, warriors stopped training. Because one human had entered the arena, and tomorrow he would face a machine god, the bow of the beasts. Dawn broke red over Vraxis Prime. Not that it mattered. The arena was always red, stained with it, bathed in it, worshipped in it. Today it felt like the blood was already in the air. The crowd overflowed beyond its obsidian walls. Holofeeds broadcast across the galaxy. From war hives to Senate halls, billions tuned in to witness the impossible. A single unaugmented human versus the Korthaxi juggernaut. No one had ever defeated it. Not even come close. Not with blades. Not with plasma. Not even with orbital strikes. It wasn't just a combat unit. It was a message. Resistance is obsolete. Commander Jack Rain stood in the gate tunnel, arms loose, breathing slow. He'd been through worse. Afghanistan, the Belt riots, the fall of Rake Station. His hands still remembered the pressure of pulling friends out of burning hulls. His mind still carried the weight of names he never stopped repeating in the dark. Today wasn't about survival. It was about something purer, something older. Legacy. They thought the human spirit could be measured in muscle mass and kill ratios. They were wrong. A deep mechanical hum began in the Colosseum. The massive central gate opened. Steam hissed. Metal groaned. The Korthaxi juggernaut entered. 12 feet tall, black alloy plating, arms ending in variable configuration weapons. One a plasma cleaver, the other a rail spike cannon. Its head had no eyes, just a smooth dome of sensory glass. A humanoid skull was bolted to its chest like a trophy. The arena's cheering died into silence. The machine turned toward Rains. Target, human. Condition, baseline. Threat level, and non-existent. Result, inevitable. The voice came from every speaker at once, layered and emotionless. The crowd drank it in like prophecy. Rains didn't flinch. He stepped onto the field, boots soft against the blood-soaked dust. The gate slammed shut behind him. He was alone, but he always had been. The juggernaut charged, faster than anything its size should be. The rail cannon spat molten steel. Rains dropped, rolled, and felt the heat sizzle past his shoulder. The cleaver came next, whistling through the air. He ducked under it by centimeters, the force kicking dust into the stands. He moved like water, fluid, never still. No wasted motion. No panic. He wasn't trying to overpower it. He was reading it, mapping its footwork, measuring arc speed, analyzing attack windows. The machine came again, cleaver down. Rains vaulted a broken pillar, landed behind it, then slashed at a leg joint. Sparks. Minimal damage. He didn't expect more. Just data. The juggernaut turned. Analysis. Terran movement patterns detected. Adaptation in progress. Rain smirked. Good. Adapt this. He threw the knife, not at the machine, but at its own cannon barrel. The blade jammed clean into the chamber before it could fire. Boom! The gun exploded, ripping the entire lower arm apart. The crowd screamed. The juggernaut staggered back, armor shredded. Rain sprinted forward. The cleaver came again, wildly this time. Rage simulated. Protocol scrambled. Rain slid under, vaulted up the exposed side of its body, and yanked free one of the sensory cord from behind its neck. The machine spasmed. He didn't stop. He jumped again, landing on its back, slamming both elbows into a heat vent to open the hatch cover. The blade, his only blade, was gone. So he used his hands. In his fury, he grabbed an exposed cluster of neural filaments and pulled. Twisted. Tore. The juggernaut convulsed, stumbled, and fell. Face first. Hard. The entire arena shook. Rain stood on its back, chest heaving. Then silence. The kind of silence no machine could simulate. The kind that comes from awe, from fear, from recognition. Then it happened. The beasts, still in their holding vaults, howled. Not in defiance. Not in rage. In submission. The Velkar warlord, once the terror of 3 moons, dropped to one knee. The Droxan hive brute, now conscious, lowered its massive horn head. And from the shadows of their pens, one by one, the combat beasts bowed. Not to a warlord, not to a system, but to a man, to a human, to Rains. Up in the command box, no one spoke. Then the Zerati elder stood. In the tournament. The Korthaxi general growled. We have rules. No, the elder said. We had illusions. He turned to the stars. And they have a reminder. Later, as Rains walked alone from the arena floor, the wind brushing dust off his clothes, someone called after him. You're not a god, Terran. He didn't turn. I don't need to be, he said. I'm a man. And that was enough.